I think we are live. Hi everyone, Zach here together with the CG Boost team. Marsha is here, Martin, and Daniel. And we also have a special guest today, Curtis Holt. Say hi.
Hi everyone.
We will do some art critique here from our recent City in the Sky art challenge. And we have a couple of nice artworks here, which I will show you right now. And we try to go over as many as possible. So we have two categories in our challenge. We have the Pro Arena and the Training Arena. And we will go through 5 artworks here. So we have some additional screenshots for each artwork here, just in case. And if we have enough time, we will also go over the winners of both categories. So first of all, maybe let us know in the comments if you can hear us well.
Curtis, the man of cool add-ons.
Yeah, so that one. Thank you, Captain Awesome, 3D.
Yeah.
All right, someone says yes. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Then I would say let's just jump right into the fun. So we have the first artwork here by Aljoscha Krüsmann. I guess it's a German name, which I luckily can pronounce. So, and let me fix this here a bit so that we can see it nicely. And just in case you're wondering, we are using this app Miro here, where we can all collaborate, and you will see our mouse cursors floating around here with our names. The white mouse cursor is mine, so don't wonder if you can't see my name here. And I would say, Curtis, since you're our special guest today,
Pressure.
Will you start giving your feedback on this artwork here?
Yeah, and one thing you did say to me before this was that we want to try and balance it out between people, I guess, so we're not repeating ourselves too much.
Exactly.
So instead of giving everything, I think I might just pick a couple of things. So the first thing I would say is I really liked this when I looked at it to start with back during the judging process. But I thought that the bottom half of the image was amazing, perfect. I love the kind of halo highlight around the bird and all of that lovely stuff. But I just thought the top part was maybe a bit chaotic, maybe a bit repetitive, doesn't necessarily describe a city in the sky. I just thought this had a lot of potential, but there's just it's a bit inconsistent on those two halves. So I'll leave it at that for now and let someone else have a little jump in.
Daniel, would you continue?
Yeah. So I really like the lens distortion. This sort of curved effect that is going on all over the place. I think the blur makes it really hard to see some of the details in these ships, like the glow and the blur. It makes the details sort of disappear a little bit. You can see them pretty well in this one, but they're sort of lost in the other three, which is unhelpful, I think. Is probably my point. So
yeah,
next person, please.
Martin.
Well, we said that we won't repeat ourselves, so I actually want to praise this piece for its atmosphere, because that's the first thing that hit me, that I loved the atmosphere and the lighting and the warm glow that goes from the sun. But yeah, unfortunately, the chromatic aberration and the motion blur is a bit too much. So it's one of those cases where you have probably a great base for a 3D artwork, and then you put all sorts of stuff on top of it, and it just stops working at some point. So overall, a really great feeling, but too much put on top of a great base, I think.
Marsha, anything to add here?
Yeah, I maybe would change a bit the shape of these balloons, because it really feels like they are not deformed by the air that is holding the whole thing. Or maybe add a structure that can reinforce these balloons in some way to justify the shape, basically. So in general, I also really like that this lower part with the nice bird and the scene and everything. Yeah.
Maybe there's something inside the balloons that forms the the shape. What
Yeah,
I want to
magic.
add here, what I want to add here is that this is one of the images where I can literally feel the air because of, I think, the shape of the clouds and like the motion blur of these things going around here, the birds flying around, but it somehow feels as if wind is blowing in the image, which is really nice. Yeah, but
Actually-
overall, I think it's a pretty solid image. Reducing the sunlight could help probably a bit.
Actually, speaking of the shape of the clouds, it seems a little bit weird, like warped all over. I'm not sure what the horizon line is or what the like. Yeah, it seems that that the author warped it or something, so that feels a little bit unnatural. But yeah, definitely agree with the feel of like the wind and spaciousness in this one.
I think something that might be really quite nice is if these rotors, I assume there's some sort of rotors like propellers, these things here. Assuming it decides to let me draw. There we go. Like if they had a bit of motion blur, so it felt like they were spinning, because at the moment they feel very stationary.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty. Yeah, but the foliage
That's
is really
true.
nice.
I didn't notice it.
Oh, also, one more last thing I would like to add is that this is supposed the city, I guess, to be. So it feels a bit like it has the same scale as the ships here around. So maybe it should be bigger. Maybe it should have maybe more, I don't know, color variation to make us understand that it's more far away or something like this.
Oh, I didn't actually register that it was different from the other ones. To be
Me
honest,
neither.
I know, like because they have the exact same shape. Like the balloon just looks. Well, now that you mention it, it does look slightly different from the others, but it does look like the exact same scale as the other balloons.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I think we have some points here. Let's go to the next one by Johnny. Well, Martin, maybe you start on this one here.
Yeah, we talked about it. That it was one of those that, if cropped or if basically made a different composition, let me grab a tool here. But basically, if cropped something like this, with this character over here as the main focal point, and something over here as something in the distance that he's looking at, it would be absolutely wonderful piece for me. Okay, maybe wider, a little bit wider, but you get the point. And because I really love this character, even though the subsurface scattering may be not as like not really realistic, but I like the stylization of this. And if there was something a little bit further in the back around this area, it would be a great piece, like a poster piece for me. When I look at the wide version of this, um, I must say that I don't really like the city. Something about the design of it just doesn't click for me, and I'm not sure about the explosion here. It is certainly interesting because it's red, but I'm not really sure what it is. And then there's this guy uh, eating a sandwich, and yeah, I mean, really, let's face it, the white eyes steal the whole artwork and kind of ruin it for me. So if it was just this composition here with some nice city in the background, it would be like one of the best pieces for the whole competition. This way, I'm not really sure. I don't. Yeah, no, I think too many details were added afterwards. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I want to jump in and say that I actually quite like the idea of a lost city being in the sky, because you see like the kind of lost city vibe in a lot of artwork, and it wasn't really the first thing that crossed my mind for the theme of this challenge. So I feel like it's probably a good approach, but yes, on top of the composition thing, more could be done to improve it. Although I think this one stood out to me like on the list of picks because this one had more of a kind of storytelling vibe to it. Like I have questions about the piece kind of when I'm looking at what's going on, and kind of like what Martin said there, you know, like there's all these different elements going on and I've got questions about each of them. So I appreciate that they took the time to kind of contribute to that part of the judging criteria. And another thing I like is that kind of visually, color wise, like there's a kind of limited palette here. And I like that. Like I like that about a lot of the entries. We've got blues and we've got a bit of red, and the red is very strong visual interest. So I think actually there are a lot of really good elements here. But yes, again, I don't want to repeat too much, but like the composition, I feel like is probably the main letdown for me as well. So yeah.
I'd probably my things are mainly that there's this sort of humongous area where there's absolutely nothing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it draws your eye to the places that, you know, like to have the nice details and stuff. But because there's so much of it, you know, if sort of like Martin said, if this city was sort of up here, it would fill these empty areas really quite nicely, and it would have this sort of eye line up towards the city a little bit. It would give the sense that he's looking more at the city and less at the little poof explosion up the top. But the lighting, I think, is really, really nice. Like these highlights and stuff on the character and on the city, they really, really draw your eye into those particular spots. And they add a different color, which is really quite nice. And yeah, I think it's mainly the composition that's letting this one down.
Masha, do you have anything here?
Yeah, it's same for me. I actually like almost all the elements in this submission. I mean, I like the city. I like the explosion. Even if it has just a red weird color, anyway, it feels nice to me. And I like the guy who's eating the sandwich. I mean, if he had like less white, bright white color in the eyes, it would fit pretty nice here. Maybe it's not a super great idea to cut him off. And that's what it makes me feel like strange about this artwork. It's technically super cool, but you have all this white space, and then you have an element that is cut away basically from the composition, and the other elements that are like on the edge basically. So this is the same thing that everyone else say. So basically change the composition and it will be just super okay.
Marsha, I think your audio was a bit corrupted in the end.
Okay, so
I think now it's better. So
okay,
maybe repeat the last few sentences you just said.
Yeah, what I was telling is since there are many elements that was cropped out of the scene, like the guy eating the sandwich, and other elements that are basically on the edge, and then we have all this empty space here. These two things feels like a bit fighting. I don't know. So basically, if I think that just by moving a few elements, everything would be super cool. That's it.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah.
And the one thing that, I mean, it's on the one hand good to don't immediately understand everything about the story, so you have to think about the image, but still I would love to understand the whole connection of this explosion and these two people here a bit better. So I can imagine that maybe this is something like there was somebody flying this plane they know, and maybe they wanted to go over there, and then there's this explosion, but I'm not really sure. So because they are not really like actively interacting with the explosion. I mean, maybe this guy here is surprised by the explosion. This is why we have this big wide eyes. But yeah,
I still read it that he's terrified of the sausage.
okay. Anyway, let's go to the next artwork. So
But one thing I think I mentioned when we did the like preliminary judging process, especially the guy. I need to let go of my like ventilator here. Sorry. Especially this guy. It kind of strikes me like a stylization from the game Dishonored, and
you're
that
still
was,
talking about this one here, right?
Yeah. Sorry. And I love the stylization, so I wanted to end up on a positive note. And yeah, anything that reminds me of Dishonored is a great plus. So I just wanted to mention it.
Okay.
Now you
that
know
for
how to win the challenge.
Yes. No, you can't. It's just my voice against others.
Okay. We have one of the procedural generative masters here, Curtis. Maybe you want to say something about this artwork.
All right, so first of all, I'll start off with like the good general vibe before we go into details. I think I said this when we were kind of doing the first review process. You can tell when someone has the vibe for like good styled artworks just by how they balance light and color. You've got some nice post-processing and stuff. But when we're looking a bit more closely, I think there's just a lot of clustered details, a bit too much. So for example, you might need to show the sag. If you take a look at the city, like if you look at the final image city close up, like there's just a lot happening all at once. It's very difficult to see where the edges of specific buildings are. It kind of looks like it's all kind of just blended together. But if you look down at the work in progress, like there's so much more clarity here. You can see like where the buildings end. You can see these kind of, dare I say, I think kit bashed pieces in between the cities as well. So I feel like there's maybe a bit of a discrepancy there where maybe better materials could have been chosen to make it a bit less chaotic, so we could actually kind of, scan our eyes across the city and see the details rather than seeing it as this kind of like homogeneous like blur of kind of greebly details. But underneath the city, I want to point out the wires as well. A lot of people put wires on their artwork, and that's kind of cool. It's also maybe sometimes a bit overused, but I think in this case it probably makes a lot of sense because like there's so many kind of industrious details here. But it does kind of stand out to me as like a geometry nodes wire setup. Like as soon as I see it, I think there's just like a few little points where it's kind of a bit more obvious than not. But I still think it's kind of cool. But what I'm basically saying is, just to kind of sum this up, it's about balance, and I feel like visually as a whole there's a good balance of like color, light, etc. Maybe the depth of field is a bit strong on like the kind of ship coming in, but kind of technically for the actual content of the scene I think there's a lack of balance, and that's kind of just what lets it down for me. So yes, but overall I like it.
Yeah, speaking of the cables, I feel that they are a bit too big compared to all the buildings because since they are so big and they are hanging so low, this must be like giant, huge cables, and I guess it's probably more safe to like connect them somewhere. But it also makes the whole city look way smaller than it actually should be, because up here we also have some smaller cables, and of course you have all the details in the buildings, and there you have these high frequency details, so you better understand, okay, this is pretty big actually, but then you have these few huge cables. Feels disbalanced between like the details. Yeah. Martin, anything to add here?
Well, I think you and Curtis said it very well, but I have a little note about the ship in the foreground, because that's something that like everybody likes to add to sci-fi pieces, like something flying in the foreground. And one thing I learned when I did my fair share of artworks like this is that you do not have to actually be like physically correct in this motion blur, because when you blur the whole element, you can't see the ship. And so what I started up doing was basically blurring just the back end of the ship, and then having the middle or the front or anything that I want to keep in focus to have it not blurred. And it still works. It still feels like the ship is moving. Of course, if this was like a shot, like an animation, then you would have to go the correct way and make the ship blurred, and it would work. But for a still piece, it's actually better to blur only the edges of the ship and keep the middle and the front something to focus on, not blurred. So that's my little tip for pieces like this. And it works. It's not correct, but it works, and it looks better because this way you can't really focus on how the ship looks.
Yeah, and you lose so many details which you maybe have modeled here. Daniel, Marsha, anything to add here?
I think that the only thing. Sorry,
Yeah, you should totally mention one.
This is going to happen a lot. I can feel it. You go first. You go first.
Okay. I think just that the overall look is very nice. And the thing that is missing for me very much is that I feel like the city is not alive. Like there's no life in there. So maybe adding more, I don't know, small people doing their stuff, or maybe some birds flying around, some life elements would help a bit. Yeah.
For me, there's a couple of things. So, like further on to Curtis and his point about the detail, I find a good trick to sort of stick to is having areas of really high detail, areas of sort of medium detail, and areas of like almost no detail. And with this one, when I look at the city, it is just all high detail except for maybe this little spot there. Whereas if you maybe had, say, a more flat texture on the white panels, like these ones here, sort of thing, it would give those areas of medium or sort of maybe even low detail, and it would make the whole thing a lot more interesting. I think the ship on the left, I always love a good spaceship. I'm a big sci-fi nerd, but I think it is very obtrusive. I think it is sort of blocking a bit too much of the image. Like this whole left side of the city is being blocked, and that may be on purpose for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but for me, it feels like the ship is kind of in the way. Like if it was down here, maybe, and it was flying that way, like that would feel a bit better to me, just because it's not like in my way when I'm trying to see what the city looks like. But again, like this, the lighting and the colors look really, really nice, and I like that these thrusters are all sort of underneath the city here. They're all pointing in slightly different directions, like the city's trying to keep itself balanced. I really like that. And the amount of glow is really, really nice as well. Like these little subtle flares and things like that. It all really works very nicely to me. But yeah, I think that's mainly it that hasn't already been covered. But yeah, I really like it overall. It's mainly just those things in particular.
All right.
The clouds are nice.
They are nice.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, great work, Leo. So let's get over to Martin. Martin.
Should I start?
Yeah, maybe Martin.
Is it like a prompt for me? Okay. So this was a very difficult one because I think we saw some preliminary pieces, like work in progress pieces for this one.
Yeah, I have it here actually. So let me scroll down a moment. So here we have it.
And we all cried a little because these previous pieces are so much better in my opinion. I mean, the creatures are awesome. The city on the creatures is a little bit like, I don't really believe that somebody could live in there, and the shiny stuff is a little bit too shiny, but that is mostly fixed in the final version. So the design of the creatures and the design of the racer in the foreground is awesome, but the atmosphere of the shot was so much better in the previous version, and the final one is just too murky and dark and really uninteresting for me. Even though the character in the foreground is nicely highlighted, yeah, it's a real pity, because if it looked in the final one, if it looked like the atmosphere of it looked like the previous, yeah, it would be one of the best pieces for me. But this way, I just it's just too dark and murky and uninteresting.
Curtis.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add than that, other than, again, comparing this one to the work in progress piece. I feel like the work in progress one kind of has more of a sense of distance, because when you look at the cloud layer in the back behind the creature, it's just like it's so much more like a painting. Like you can see the clouds rolling back and back and back, yeah, in the work in progress one. But when you look at the final result, the kind of dark and murky one, we've lost some of that. So yeah, that was one of the disappointing points for me. And also, but this is more of just like complete bias, the little creature was more glowy in the work in progress one, and I thought it was kind of cute. It's less glowy in the final one, but yeah, other than that, exactly the same as what Martin said. So, yeah.
There's a couple of little more technical things for me that sort of get in the way of this one. Like, one is the lack of depth haze on the big one at the back. Like, again, in the work in progress one, it had a lot more of that sense of like atmosphere in between you and the creature, because it was sort of fading into sky color. Whereas in the finished one, it feels almost the same level of darkness and the same level of distance as the smaller one, and even as the character in the front. There's a little bit of it, but it's really, really subtle in the finished one. And also the lack of motion blur in the rocks bothers me a little, because I get the sense that we're supposed to be zooming sideways quite quickly from the streakiness of the water and how fast I presume that man on his squid is moving. But the rocks are perfectly stationary. There's no motion blur on them at all, not even depth of field, nothing. They are really sharp. And it sort of, I don't know, and they sort of detract from it for me. But otherwise, I'm pretty much on board with the other guys, I think.
Yeah, it feels a bit like if here where we have this line, this horizon line going on, as if from here there's just a flat image, like the whole background is just one flat layer. So on the other one, there was really depth also between these two creatures. They also felt they are pretty far away from each other, so you can really see the scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, too sad. Next time, post your artwork in our community. Link is under this video, so we can all give some feedback before you submit it. That would be awesome.
But this way actually, this final one reminds me of a trailer for a game Onimusha 3, and that's awesome. So maybe,
Dishonored and Onimusha.
Yes.
You know how to do it, Martin.
Basically any game.
Yeah.
No.
If it reminds Martin of a game, you're a winner.
No, that's not.
Okay, next image by Rushad, I guess. Yeah, okay. Who hasn't talked that much? Marsha. You can start here, I think.
I knew. Anyway, okay. So I really like the concept of the kid watching outside the window and staring at this big structure that probably is part of I don't know, the city. But the thing that disturbs me very much is this glowing part here that actually doesn't really feels like clouds, but I don't know, it's strange. I mean, if it was clouds, it should be like have more cloudy shape, and in this way it's just just feels a bit unnatural. So I would work a bit more on that. And also, since it's so glowy, it feels a bit weird that the structure isn't illuminated from this angle. Like if this were clouds and they were glowy because they are illuminated by the sun, shouldn't light like bounce from there and end up on the structure and illuminate it a bit more? Yeah. And one more thing that disturbs me a little is maybe that the whole image, it looks like it goes for the realistic look, but the structure, just for the textures, feels a bit like it's more cartoony or something. Maybe it's the colors, I'm not sure. Yeah. So I'm done.
Okay, Daniel.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I agree with all of Masha's points. I think it would be nice to see a bit of cloud that's sort of in front of the building to sort of make it feel like it's in the clouds rather than just sort of sitting on top of them. But there's this beam, actually, this fella, that's sort of right in the middle of the building, which is a bit unfortunate, like the placement. Like it feels like it's blocking our view of the building that's right behind it. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe like if it was moved down to here or something, and like if the clouds weren't as glowy and the windowsill was down here, the window frame, sorry, it might be a little bit better framed. It's hard to say. The lighting's really quite nice. I do just agree that the lack of surface detail, I think, on the building is hurting it quite badly. And these great big things, I get it's supposed to be some sort of like super futuristic sort of thing, but they don't feel like they don't feel anywhere near as grounded as the foreground stuff, which I don't know. It sort of feels like a clash of styles. But yeah, I think that's mainly it for me.
Curtis, anything to add here?
Yeah, so a couple of things I would say just for the positive notes is, again, I really like the kind of the story idea, like all the little cute parts of artwork, you know, like the little drawings and all of that. So I like it when people take like a little step outside the box for that, because it's not something that most people would do. But this child down here, like, I have a few queries about how it was made, because like when I'm looking at the head, I'm seeing what looks like a kind of bald patch there. I'm not too sure what's happening with the lighting on the geometry around the shoulder, because it's like you can almost see light bleeding through. It might be a shadow issue. I think the arm looks a bit strange. But while you were talking, I had a little look at the work in progress, and if we come on down, it looks like just a basic shape has been kind of blocked out, and then maybe an image of a child has been kind of projected on that. If that's how it was done, then to be honest, the result's actually quite good for that method, because it's quite a tricky thing to get right. So yeah, there's nothing else other than that I can add that, you know, anyone else has already said. So yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. I think the only little thing I might add here is that with all these bright clouds here and the bright sun over here, the lighting on the building is a bit too low, so it must be way stronger here on the edges, I think. And also in comparison to the sky, the building in general is pretty dark. So I think brightening it up would also help to add this kind of atmospheric layer between the front part and the background here. Yeah.
Actually,
But-
one extra thing, sorry, is that the window, like the amount of dirt on the window is really, really nice in this. I like that a lot. Like it's it feels like there's glass there, but not enough that it detracts from your ability to see through it at all. It's very well done.
Nice.
Yeah, agreed. Basically, if it was cropped like this, not maybe something like this, and the glowy fog was gone, and there was something around here in the very distance, it would be an awesome piece. I would love it. And yeah, the building unfortunately doesn't really work there, and doesn't. It feels like it's from a different artwork.
All right. That's pretty much it for the pro arena entries. So let's go over to the training arena. And we start with Aulivio. Please, someone else pronounce the name.
Don't ask me. I got them wrong on the channel.
Hariananda. That was Japanese. Sorry.
Oh, gosh.
Despite the accent sort of thing, I think you actually nailed it.
Thanks, man.
Hariananda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're in the chat. They're in the chat. They're laughing.
Oh,
It's okay.
hello.
That's good. We're okay. No lawsuits. We're good.
Approved.
Okay, maybe I start here. So when I saw this,
It's correct.
nice. All right, can I zoom in a bit closer? Oh, that might be a bit too close. Why can't zoom perfect steps here anyway? So what I really liked about this artwork is all the paper origami work, like all these little creatures flying around here, and especially the balloons with the lighting inside looks pretty awesome. And also the general idea is very nice. Also, the clouds are looking fantastic, and I think this reddish tone fits nicely to the white paper stuff. And it doesn't feel as if texture is missing here, which is also nice. I think the lighting and compositing adds a lot here. However, the biggest problem for me is that the image is a bit messy, especially here in the center part, which is like the focus of the scene, I guess. So let me pick a pen here. So what I really like is this bottom part, this here. Since we have all these nice creatures and how they are placed, it works for me. However, this whole part, you can see we have these rock shapes in between here, and they are distracting because they have so high contrast compared to all the other elements. It's really distracting, so your focus goes all around here, and it's leading away from, I guess, the main focus here at the center, which is this big city central stuff. So I guess removing some of these islands or changing the texture of these islands would probably help a lot. Like less is more. Yeah, this is from my perspective. Curtis, anything to add here?
So, yeah, I like that. First of all, yeah, the idea is very creative, and a lot of us expressed kind of admiration of that. But I like that not only have you been creative with the idea, you've been creative inside of the idea with the exploration of the hot air balloons. Because I remember, I think, Zach, did you point that out during the conversation, like how much we kind of admired that? So there's like lots of these really interesting ideas and elements in here. I just wish, kind of again, talking about the cluttered nature of the artwork, I just wish some of those interesting parts were more focused. Because yes, again, about the islands, I feel like not only is this all very cluttered, but they're a completely different style. So you've got like kind of two kind of conflicting elements there. So yes, not much more to add other than that. Other than I really, really like the idea. I just wish that it was a bit better balanced.
Daniel?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are really, really nice that I really like about this. Aside from, again, the creative use and like the idea of the origami and stuff, I really, really like that it feels like there's stuff inside these balloons. Like it feels like there's something blocking the light in there. Like it adds a lot of depth and sort of weight, and it feels more like a real object, which is really nice. I think the depth of field down the bottom, so like the blur, is really, really nice. And the chromatic aberration, I think, is done pretty well. Like, yeah, it doesn't distract me at all. The only issue with that aberration for me is I don't know if it's on purpose or if it's like an artifact of the aberration. But you've got these sort of weird little blue triangle-y things in the corner, and I don't dislike it, but if it may be an issue with the aberration that's causing that. But yeah, not much to add. I think it's really nicely done. Maybe a bit more focus on the middle. Maybe with like, I think the lighting helps with that because you've got the nice bounce off the white stuff. But yeah, the islands don't feel like they're lit up in the same vibrant sort of way as the rest of it, and it does hurt it, I think. Yeah.
Martin?
Yeah, I think all the important stuff was already said. I'm kind of bothered. The focus is missing, and that's the most important part or the most important flaw of this. I'm also bothered that the main building is a little bit crooked, like, tilted to the side. Yeah. So yeah, that's not ideal. I think this a centerpiece like this should be straight. And on the other hand, I really love the color palette, and this is not a color palette that is usually used, pink and a kind of bluish or cyan tones. And here it works very well. So that's one thing I really like about it.
Masha, anything to add or?
Yeah, I just can add to the Zach considerations about the stones, like the island, that I think that the problem might be solved by using just some bright textures, just more bright textures without removing the islands.
But I think then you have to be careful that's not like too much white everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I think then you really have to reduce the amount of like islands here. Maybe just like one big island here at the center, and maybe just one or two little islands.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I think this is a pretty awesome looking artwork. Feels really nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one by Bhargav, I guess. Daniel, would you like to start here?
Sure. So I personally really like this one. I think there's a lot of really good elements, like the waterfall over on the right here. I think looks really quite nice. I think the sense of scale might be a little bit off. Like the wall feels really like sort of large and solid, but then the city right behind it, I don't know, it feels quite tiny. Also, we did notice when we were judging it that you can sort of see inside the wall in a few places, which is not ideal. I don't know, putting something in front of that, like, I don't know, a little tower or something just to block those holes would be really helpful. I really like the ground, like the grass, but again, it feels like the scale's off because those grass blades and the I don't know, pebbles look way bigger than they should be. Like if there are people inside these little houses down here, then they would be walking around in grass that is taller than them, which is like, it may be that they are tiny little people living on a strange little floating island, and if so, that's cool. But yeah, it's a thing to consider. The brick colors are all sort of like there's actually I just noticed some more holes in the walls over in the middle one as well. But the brick colors are all kind of different. So there's like this sandstony brown one, then there's like a pale sort of cool one, and then there's this sort of sand like deserty sort of feel, and then there's this one which is like a darker sort of color, and it's fine to have a bit of variety, and that's cool. But I don't know, they feel a little bit disconnected from me, like they're from different kit bash kits or something. Again, not a bad thing, but it's something to keep in mind. Other than that, I really quite like it. I like the rainbows. I think the clouds look really nice. Yeah.
But it's not a rainbow. It's a lens flare.
Is it? No,
No,
it's like
Well,
it's
this-
like a rainbow that's
flare.
swinging around. It's nice.
no, it's
We
not
are
nice.
in the rainbow.
Sorry, man. I'm really allergic to these types of lens flare effects. Sorry. That's just me. That's just me. The rest of the team may not agree with me, but I think these like really obvious lens flare effects should be banned.
We add another rule to the challenge. No
Uh,
rainbow lens flares allowed.
yeah.
So Martin, do you want to add anything more here?
that was my comment pretty much. No,
Okay.
I love the clouds actually because they could be a little bit more high resolution in my opinion, but they seem nicely dense and with a lot of structure to them. So I like that very much. And there are weird highlights here. I'm not sure what they are caused by. Maybe some
Looks like a Photoshop effect.
yeah, something like that. So that's the one thing that like kind of yeah, that's a little bit of a flaw there, but otherwise I really like the clouds and the city. Yeah, if the issue with the sizes was resolved, it would be much better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Of course, you can say something.
Okay. Yeah, I personally feel like there's little detail missing to the houses, and also on this side here we have all these rocks, and they're very nice. But I think that they should have more variety in scale, because right now they are look all the same, and also they are very big. Like if you compare them to the houses, oh, I just found a house that is like penetrating the wall. Yeah. And also we have like some rocks that are kind of like, it feels like they are growing on the part of the land that it's already like the down part, and it feels a bit weird. And I think that's it. Anyway, I also like the whole thing, the colors and the vibe of the whole composition. It's very nice, and I think with just a few changes, it would look great.
Hmm. Coming to the scale issue once again, like here for this big giant wall, the stones are pretty huge if you compare it with like the bricks over here. And in this way, for me, although this wall should be massive, it looks pretty small and tiny. But then seeing like the tiny houses and so on, it doesn't really match. So I guess just scaling down the texture so that the stones are smaller would help here already. Maybe some little bridges here would also fit nicely. And of course, since here we have everything filled with little houses, I would also add some details in between here. Maybe get rid of this like repeating pattern here. So you can see that this wall is made out of different pieces. So better merge these things into each other. And again, the scale, I think one thing that also is a little bit of an issue here is that the houses are so small, but here on these towers, we have these giant windows. So you could fit an entire house inside one of these windows here. So make sure that like the scaling of everything fits to each other. Yeah, this is pretty much my comment. But as mentioned before, I also love the mood and the way this is presented with the clouds. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice one. So let's go over to Kiril. Let's check this one out. Curtis.
Oh no, I haven't had time to think. Come back to me. This is someone else
Take
taking.
2 seconds.
I'm going to assess it.
I think this one would really like be much better if the sun had some nice atmospheric to it. and even a little glow, and maybe a little bit of lens flare, but like a
Rainbow.
tiny
Oh, so
little.
now lens flares are okay.
I knew it. But yeah, this one is directly in your face, and in this case, it's begging for some little effect there, and here it is pretty much missing. There is actually this kind of dark circle around the sun, which is yeah, it is strange. It would of course have to work with the stylization of the piece, but I think if some atmosphere effect was added to it, it would be much better. And maybe some birds, like birds are great everywhere.
Add birds everywhere.
Birds,
Another
And
thing
game
is,
related, lens flares in the right spot,
The right
But
lens flares.
not too much, not too much.
not too much.
Dishonored birds. I've got a couple of things now.
Okay.
Okay.
So some of the buildings look like they have no texture whatsoever, and some of them do. I feel like it's a little bit inconsistent. I like the shaping, although yeah, I think the sun's a bit overwhelming with that kind of halo. Like it's quite large compared to the brightness, and the clouds above that top bit. At least I think they're clouds. The shaping of them just seems a little bit weird compared to like the actual city. So I just think there's like a few little shaping inconsistencies. I'm also looking at this area, which I think is water, down in the bottom right of the city. I think it's water. I think that's like a little beach, and then there's a water zone. I just wonder because like the texture looks a bit kind of stretched there, like a stretched normal kind of going across. So I just think there's like just a few very small stylistic inconsistencies in it. But otherwise, I quite like the city actually. But yeah, maybe actually if it took up more like a central focus on the frame, the sun doesn't seem that particularly interesting by comparison. This might have actually been a really, really good like 1:1 aspect ratio art piece rather than a wide one, because it's more like a diorama, like a floating diorama.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I feel that this could even work horizontally, no, vertically. Like having the sun at the top, maybe intersecting a bit with the city. And then you also have this brighter spot at the top, which I think would work nicely here. And yeah, I also feel that if you go for stylization, it's important that everything fits well together, because I think you mix-mashed a couple of styles here, because the trees look like pretty low poly, but then you have this smooth surface here, and also some of the buildings has some subsurf modifiers on it, I guess. At least it looks like it. So I think in this piece, when you go for this more subsurfy style, then I guess the trees should also be more smooth and circular shaped. Maybe the lighting could also be a bit more towards the side, or the like slightly at the top level here as well, because the lighting here looks pretty nice, but you can barely see it because we have only these little spots where the sun shines through. So everything is tinted into blue then, which doesn't look too interesting. But other than that, I totally love the idea of this like cubic city. Yeah. And I would probably add clouds around everywhere here, which also adds to the sense that this is like a little planet. Yeah. It's pretty much for me.
There was the couple of things for me is that that there's again a bit of a lack of life going on. Like it feels like the city's quite good. Like I like the fact that all the buildings feel pretty unique. I can't see any duplicates there, or at least not any obvious ones. But like some cars maybe on the roads, maybe a couple of people or something, maybe not even people, just like a couple of beach towels or something on that thing down there, if that is supposed to be a beach. Something to give it a bit of vibrance, because at the moment it feels kind of dead, which is a shame.
There is a pool on a building. You could put like people chilling. That would be great.
Definitely. Yeah, perfect. And also, this is a bit of a nitpick, I'm aware, but like when these buildings are on the sides, they're very straight. except down the bottom where they're sort of fanned out, and that gets on my OCD a little, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's a fact of life, and yeah, so that's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be the guy who asks, how does this work, like gravity-wise? But no,
Gravity pulls towards the
I
center.
know, I know.
You're
I
not
know.
thinking this through, Martin.
Right, I know.
Look, just the corners would be the weirdest place, though, where like you slide in
Yeah,
any
right.
direction. and you
Where
just
does
get
it
yanked.
end? But it will get dangerous, I guess. You know what?
Terrifying
walking
flying a
in-
plane, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Also, the clouds could be like, just using VDBs is it's the easiest thing these days. So,
What is VDB?
or
Martin?
actually, VDB volumes are just the easiest ways to import volumetric stuff like clouds into your Blender scenes. But maybe not. Maybe like the author went stylization here. So, but yeah, I think I would work on the clouds a bit more.
I think they feel like ice or glass
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe just make them a bit bigger, because there's like these 4 tiny little itty bitty little clouds.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
if you
maybe
made
add
them,
more
like-
variety to
Yeah, a
shape.
bit more variety. Maybe have one that's sort of like this size, and then like another one that's like this size.
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
Just something to shake it up a little,
Oh,
and maybe something in front as well, because there's nothing in the
Yeah.
foreground, and there's no atmosphere. Yeah, it is nice though. I do like the city design. I think it's kind of cute and cool and interesting and different.
Yeah.
it seems that I live in my own little world where I think that everybody knows what VDB is. Like in
He's
the
still
chat, it
dwelling on the
seems.
VDBs.
Sorry, guys. so yeah, I may make a tutorial about it.
Marsha, anything to add here, or was
Yeah,
everything-
everyone already told everything, I guess.
Okay. Then let's go to the next one by Prajyot, I guess.
I guess.
By the way, 5 of these artworks we have here were replies to an email I sent out. So if you're on our newsletter, I usually send out an email, and like the first 5 people that reply will get their artworks reviewed. So 5 of these artworks are from the email list, basically. Daniel, it's you
My
again.
turn. Okay. First, I think the big issue is the framing. There's this thing in the middle, and then there's all this empty space out here. If it was cropped to something like that, I feel like it would be a bit better straight out the gate. There's also nothing at all in the foreground at all, which is totally fine, except I think maybe just like a hint of cloud or something to give it a sense of depth, because this also could be a pretty tiny little thing that's right up close to the camera, and it's sort of hard to tell. The clouds seem really like there's a lot of little high frequency clouds, particularly out here and out here. And it would be nice to see a bit of variation in there, some like big softer ones, and then a little bit of high detail here and there. And then just sort of generally, it looks like there's a lot of sort of procedural textures going on, or maybe not even procedural ones, just sort of like really sort of rough UV mapping, and then the same sort of sci-fi-ish textures, just sort of slapped on a whole bunch of things, and like there's even like little places like there that look like there might be little UV map sort of errors and things like that. And it feels kind of like it's trying to make up for a lack of detail. So maybe instead of doing something like that, which is sort of jarring to the eyes, maybe just like lean into the lack of detail and make it more of a low poly kind of thing, sort of like that last city. I'm not sure, but yeah, I do like the colorful sort of nature of it. It gives a bit of a like cyberpunky kind of deal with like all these different neon colored lights, and I do like I don't know. There's something about that booster design I really quite like. It's quite nice. It tickles my sci-fi nerve. I like it.
It's glowy.
I think
It is
what
glowy.
would add a lot to this sci-fi or this cyberpunk look is that you would put some lights on the clouds here in the foreground, and then you could also better connect it with the environment. So with
Yeah.
these bluish lights then shining on the clouds, and have some volumetric light and shadows here going on, and probably the same also up here. Maybe some spotlights shining into the air. And I also think like little spaceships flying around here, maybe just some little light dots here and there, would add a sense of scale to the city. Because right now, as Daniel told, we are missing like the sense of scale, if this is like super tiny or pretty huge and big. Curtis?
Yeah, so I was going to make a point about the materials and the textures, but Daniel kind of went over that, where if you zoom in, like they don't really make too much sense. It just looks like they've been added for the sake of adding detail. But yeah, I would say the main thing about the artwork that kind of puts me off of it is just the darkness. Now, darkness itself is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, this is supposed to be like, I'm guessing like a floating night city, you know, like a kind of cyberpunky vibe. But, you know, having these very holographic and neon light sources requires quite a good understanding of how to balance the light and the high contrast color to be able to still kind of visually say, okay, here are the structures. And that's something that I think is getting a bit confused in this, like in the actual city. You know, too much in one place, not necessarily paying attention to, again, like the distribution of large, medium, and small shapes. But, you know, you almost want to tell a story with the light. And that's quite important for, I think, these very cyberpunk-like cities, because when you see them in like these massive video games and films, they're all telling stories, like, you know, with the billboards, with the structures and all of that. I think there's a bit of a hidden skill there, and I feel like you're kind of heading on the right track in the way that, you know, you're trying to give these buildings unique identities. But yes, it is kind of about balance, and again, like all the missing space here in the frame. So yeah, not too much more than that.
Marsha?
Yeah, I think that these big spots in the middle of the city, like they're placed everywhere, and so they're like my eyes are just popping here and there and watching around randomly without focusing on anything. And I get the point. It's a nice city. You are supposed to have like lights everywhere, but I think in a situation like this, you can handle it by maybe putting many little lights on the points that shouldn't be the focus, and maybe bigger lights on the points that should be the focus. That might be this tower, or I don't know, this one of these. And also something that is kind of missing for me is the storytelling thing. I mean, there is no life, and maybe this is a robot city where there is no life. So then I would like to see maybe the robots or something like this. I would like to see like something happening in the city. Yeah, that's
Some
it.
flying cars or something.
Yeah,
zoomed
something
around.
like yeah, things that are going on.
Yeah, completely agree with everything that was said. I've 2 points. Maybe for the storytelling point, it would be so much better just to paste in Photoshop or anywhere else, like commercials onto the buildings, like in the light areas, to put some commercials and made up titles for anything really. That would add up so much detail to it and quite fast and cheap. And also, if the clouds were actually closer to the city, maybe enveloping it a little bit, hiding some parts of it, not too much maybe, but if the clouds kind of like were touching the bottom of the city, that would add up so much to the artwork.
And I think
Yeah.
someone in the comments said something that I agree with too, which is that these, like the big orange ones and the big blue lights, they feel very flat with zero detail on them at all. I feel like the one in the back, the big tall yellow one, I don't mind that so much because it's got all the little streaky sort of things, and I think that looks quite nice. But the big, flat, rectangular sort of shaped ones, and the red one as well a little bit, feel very, very, very low detail, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. I agree here. Let's go to the next one. Oh, this is
this
I
one.
like this.
Martin's idea.
I fought for this one.
So did I. I liked it.
Yeah.
A little disclaimer.
I'm sorry, Martin.
Okay, Martin, what do you like about this image?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot going on, and yeah, admittedly, kind of too much going on. But I think, despite a lot of details everywhere, the main focus is retained, and it's this big glowy thingy in here, and it's drawing your attention. I mean, I don't know what it is. Portal, probably. But it sure looks cool, and I don't even like, except for areas like the bridge here where the textures are not very nice. I don't really feel like a lot of details are repeated. So that's a nice thing about this piece. I mean, when I go really far away from it and squint my eyes, it just works. I love the colors, I love the atmosphere and the details. When I go closer, I can see the flaws, and yeah, some of the areas are not ideal, like this one, the bright one with the grass, where it's visible that the grass is not very. Is it the grass? I guess it is grass. It's
like
not. It's not too varied and kind of flat. So it's flawed, yes, but overall it really works for me, and I love the atmosphere and the colors, and the epic scale of it, actually.
Yeah, you definitely have a sense of scale, which is really, really nice in this. Like I don't for a second mistake this fella for someone that's human size. Like he feels huge, massive, and I think a lot of that is because of the atmosphere that haze that's in front of it, and also the fact that you've got all these little ships and these little walkways down here that I imagine are perfectly normal human scale, and these buildings that feel like they are the right sort of scale, although maybe a little bit small compared to the bridges. But yeah, you have a sense of scale that is retained relatively well throughout the entire thing, and the focus, I think, is drawn really nicely by that line, that bridge in particular. It's sucking your eye right into the center of that really big bright spot there, which is really, really nice. And there's a bit of I like the fact that the buildings look relatively varied. Like there's a few like that one that seem to be appearing in a few places, but most of the buildings feel kind of different and relatively unique. And there's even like ones down here that are completely different from all the others, and it feels quite nice. Yeah, there's a bit of a lack of motion in it. Like these ones don't have any blur on them at all. Like they don't feel like they're moving very much for me. That might just be a me thing, but yeah, there is a lot going on, like Martin said. But I think there's a lot of nice things about it too, and I really like the colors and the lighting and everything. I think it works really well for me.
Yeah, I think the scale is also pretty good because the ships are getting smaller and smaller, and still here in front of this giant thing we have these tiny dots where we can tell that there are still ships flying around, so you can really see the giant circle thing here. One thing, I'm not sure if this is actually good or bad, like all the clouds are pretty bright, which helps of course a little bit to have like these more empty spots here and there, so we have like more frequent details and less frequent details. But maybe, I guess these are like added in post, I assume, but would be probably also pretty cool to have some like volumetric clouds going on here, so you have some shadows on top, some more light variation. This could work a lot better here, I guess, especially down here I think up here it's totally fine that the clouds are brighter because they are probably closer to the sun. And I think it would be also nice if we have this foreground element, which we can see quite clearly, to have some people walking around here, standing around here, to add some life to it as well, I guess.
Yeah, I've got a few things to point out here. So like with this artwork, it goes back to one of the earlier pieces we had a look at where you can tell someone has the vibe, for good artwork, for good light, for good balance, and as you said about the scale. But I think one of the reasons why like we had a little bit of trouble pushing this one through is because, on close inspection, there's just a few things which are a little bit off. So one of them, if we like have a look at the bridge, this might have been pointed out already, but like the textures, they kind of change direction based on the geometry. Also a little pet peeve, you can see the geometry on the curvature of different pieces. It's not just this bridge here, but also on the large scale big ring up here. If you have a look at this line going down here, you can start to see the geometry kind of as it's ticking along. A lot of the buildings have exactly the same materials applied to them, and it's kind of like scattered throughout the artwork everywhere. So it's just like on the grand scale, like it's balanced like relatively well, but when you look in on the finer details, like there are certain parts which let it down. And yeah, those are just like the things which I don't want to say annoyed me because I really like the art piece, but those are the things I noticed.
Masha, anything to add here?
Yeah, just wanted to add that for me, the piece overall looks very well, but something that annoys me a bit is this like burning light in the middle, and it does pretty well the thing of attracting the attention because we should look at that spot, but it feels really too much, so I would probably turn it a bit down. And then all the things the others said, I definitely agree with them. And overall, the artwork is really cool. But then when you zoom in, you start seeing little small details that are out of place and should be like a bit corrected. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, great work. This was under the finalists, definitely. So we all like this. Oh, and this was the last one for the training arena, by the way. That means, I think we still have some time left to talk a little bit about the winners from the pro category and maybe even have a look at the training arena highlights. So let's go to the first place by Ben White.
Before we start, may I ask, is it a little bit more saturated than the one we saw?
No.
No. Okay.
Quiet, Martin.
All right.
Who's going to go first? Who's going to go?
Sorry?
I was going to say who's going to go first, but I'll go then. It's an O'Neill cylinder. I love the idea behind it. Like, it immediately clicked. But maybe I'm a bit biased for the sci-fi element. I just thought the idea was really cool of an O'Neill space station being the city in the sky. I thought like the details were quite well distributed, but as I put on my comments, there are just a few things I think might be a little bit strange. So first of all, yes, like it's not very vibrant, but also like on the right where we have that kind of gray slabbed, potentially industrious area. Let me just highlight it up there. Like the change from agriculture to what I'm guessing is industrious is like immediate. And it's maybe not super consistent with other styles. Like I think up here, maybe in the top, I'm looking at that thinking there are more lights in the area. Is that like the actual city element? And if so, wouldn't that be kind of more interesting down here? Are they the same? Is it just because I can't see the gray? So like I'm just getting a bit confused with a few things here. But my word, I love the framing. Like this is really cool, like having the train or the monorail coming along towards the camera. I also said in my comments as well that if you took like a few crops of certain areas here, you would end up with just a really nice piece of artwork. You could do that in a few different locations. So yeah, I really, really like this one. I'll leave it on a positive note.
Yeah, for me, I basically just want to say one little thing here. Because I put this into Photoshop and cranked up the saturation a bit and the contrast, and immediately there was much more depth in the image. So for me, it unfortunately looks a bit flat with the colors, and I think the dark areas are brightened up a little bit. But yeah, other than that, it's a fantastic artwork. Especially the crops here. Look at the crops.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, amazing.
Incredible.
Same as like the trees, and then slowly going into the fine details here at the back. And there's so much to discover in this image, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
You could
Yeah, the
spend.
transition is from the high detail stuff to the lower detail stuff in the background is really smooth. Like I have trouble finding a spot where it feels like it cuts from like this like super high detail crop to like these basic, what I imagine are just sort of flat textures. There's not a point where it like clicks over, I don't think. And I think that works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit confused because I remember this artwork when I picked it for my favorite one. I slightly remember that the planet in the back was a little bit more readable. Now it's a bit too glowy. Maybe it's the live stream and I'm watching it in the Miro app. That might be it. But that's really, at this point, it's the only critique that I have, that this area over here seems a little bit too overblown and glowy.
Yeah.
Weird.
Someone in the chat said, "Did anyone else turn their head following the image?" And I think that's a pretty.
I was in the middle of doing that.
I think that's a good sign, because it's like, you're kind of inquiring, kind of visually. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Let me,
maybe it's because of this big white line, pushing down here, and that the horizon line basically is also tilted a bit, and of course, like these big structures.
Yeah.
Funny.
I love these little lens sort of details. That tickles my compositing fancy. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's done right.
Yeah.
That's how it should be done. Like,
It's very
Yeah.
nice.
subtle.
Yeah.
Less is best.
By the way, someone in the chat has a suggestion for us. That the judges should also participate in the challenge. Like 5 of you will make your own submissions.
Oh shit!
Then you will realize that we
I'm a guest.
can't.
I don't have to do it. See ya.
See you, Curtis.
Yeah.
Well, we will all probably lose.
And he was never seen from again.
And
Honestly, I would love to. Like, the theme is really cool, but 2 words: time investment. I have a channel to run of my own, so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to compete in these, and then I got drafted, and now it's a little ethically.
You can still create an artwork, but you can't like win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I did win one of Zach's challenges in the past, though. It was when it was the weekly CG challenge. Yeah, I think it was the legendary weapon theme. It was like a Sketchfab entry. I got first
very
prize.
nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
The best I got was an honorable mention. That was as far as I got.
Yeah, but you did a great work. I mean, I think you just was like unlucky, because that challenge, we had so many absolutely cool submissions.
Thank you for sparing my feelings.
No.
All right, let's go to the second one. And I know what everyone wants to point out. Let's maybe go down to the screenshot here. Let's zoom a little bit closer to.
Who's gonna say it? Who's gonna say it?
Me.
Go on, Masha. Go on.
Oh, this guy's. Why? What is he doing there? I mean, the whole image is so cool with so many details and looks amazing. And there is this guy that it's like super low poly. I think that just maybe an empty ship would be super great without the guy. I mean, if you're doing a work and you feel like you don't have enough time to add enough details to like maybe a guy, just remove it, because for me this image, it works absolutely great with without the guy.
It
It's,
probably would have
this is
won if it
amazing.
wasn't for that dude, right?
yeah, absolutely, because it looks so cool. I mean, look at the details of the houses, all the different windows, the plants, the I don't know. I love this work, but I hate the guy.
I actually don't like the bottom, yeah. So I would like.
I mean, I
proper-
like the trees and the cloudy
maybe,
things there.
Yeah. Here's the clouds, so it has to be there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's something you don't notice immediately, that it's not water down there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
And-
quite like that though. Like
Me too.
Like I think the contrast with the tree is. I think it's a really pretty tree, aside from everything else.
Yeah.
But like a contrast with the roots and the tree and the brick and stuff, I think it works really, really nicely. And the fact that you don't notice immediately that it isn't water, and then you sort of go, "Oh, that explains the balloons everywhere." And like I think it works really quite well for me.
Yeah.
And did anyone mention the nice lighting and the colors, which
Yeah.
I really love
Super
here?
cool. Yeah.
I mean,
Great
luckily
work.
the guy is pretty much in darkness, so you can't immediately. It's not jumping to your eyes.
I don't know. That was the first thing I have seen, and I was like, why?
I haven't noticed this. I mean, I think I just noticed this after you guys told me so.
Yeah.
But I guess this is a downloaded character. So just go to Sketchfab, download something high resolution, or to Mixamo.
Yeah.
No, not Mixamo.
There's nothing wrong with Mixamo. It just
No, just
happened
put
to
a-
be a bad coincidence. We got several of the same character, unfortunately.
I
Yeah.
suggest just putting a tree in there. I don't need a character in there.
Did we ever
A
find
tree
out
in a
where,
boat.
where
Yeah,
that female
she's-
character came
Get
from?
rid of the
She's
boat.
from Mixamo.
She
Yeah,
is.
we
She is.
found
Okay.
her on Mixamo.
Nice.
We might have to point her out now. We've mentioned it.
Yeah. For context, because that might be a bit confusing, there was one female character that appeared in like many different entries, and we were starting to get a bit confused when looking through them, because she was like
Yeah.
there, and then she appeared like everywhere else. We were like, "Who is this person?"
Conspiracy.
And then we searched online, and we found it on Mixamo.
Yeah.
But on Mixamo, there are like 100 different characters you can download. But interestingly, a lot of people just downloaded the same character.
One thing I did just notice about this actually, on closer inspection, is that the sky seems like pretty as it is, and it works really, really well for the image, but it does seem to be kind of low resolution compared
Yeah.
to the buildings right next to it. Like there's a distinct sort of pixelated vibe about it, or blurry sort of vibe. And if it's way off in the background, it would not be blurrier than the buildings. So that's the only other niggle for me, apart from the unfortunate character that we won't to talk about anymore. It's that.
Yeah.
Just gonna scribble them out. There we go.
But it's just fixed.
It's gotta be.
All right. Okay. Let's go to the third place over here by Sebastian, which was done in Unreal, as we can see down here in the screenshot.
So is the city 3D? It looks 3D in the
think so, yeah.
viewport.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Amazing.
Why are you mentioning this, Martin?
Well, that's the critique that we all agreed on, that the city, the actual city, the most important thing in the artwork, is the only thing that seems a little bit 2D when compared to all the other stuff in the artwork. So that was a little bit of a letdown.
But you only mean the buildings, right? Not the island.
Not the rock. Sorry, the actual city. It may be that there is some 2D post work on this done with some highlights and stuff, and it kind of flattened it down. But yeah, that's the feeling I immediately got from watching this artwork.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's awesome. Like the
By
atmosphere.
the way, if you look at the work in progress shot, the city, it looks very much more realistic and 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like there was some post work done to the sky to make it a bit darker.
Let's check. Yeah. I mean, the sky looks
like
completely
the sky's
different.
been completely replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it more obvious to me then. Like, yeah, so the sky's been completely replaced, which means that the atmosphere, like the ambient lighting on the city is completely wrong for that sky, which makes it. And even like if you look at like sort of in these sort of areas, you can sort of see the remnants of that blue sky in there. It's been sort of cut out and replaced because like if the sky was that color, as it fades off into the distance, it would be getting more like the sky color. It would not be necessarily getting more bluish. It would be getting more, in this case, a bit more orangish. Like over here, it looks perfect, exactly right. But over here, it looks more blue than it should be, and that's probably not helping with the city. And there's a lot of little duplicated buildings and things, a lot of little duplicated buildings and things in the city, which is not helpful, unfortunately.
But the composition is awesome. Like with all these, all these rocks pointing towards the city. Like we have this, like ground, like bent down here a little bit. Everything is basically leading towards the city. I feel that in the front there could be maybe something more interesting than a rock and some grass.
That adds some story.
Yeah. Maybe a character with a star.
A low poly character.
Yeah.
No.
I think I might have given a couple of things in my notes for this one. Maybe something about like a couple of like animals grazing, or perhaps like a broken wagon or something. Maybe if there was like a broken wagon, it might give an indication for the age as well. Because like I think depending on what you put in the foreground, it can tell a lot about the story. If there's a character, well, this is probably an active city and they're on their way there. But if there's like a broken or an abandoned wagon, then you think, okay, well, maybe it's, you know, a dead city. Because you can't necessarily tell that just from looking at it here. So there might be a couple of like key storytelling parts which you could put there in the foreground that are just missing at the moment. But yeah, otherwise it's a lovely piece.
Yeah, maybe add some more detailed trees over here. The tips of the trees. You have some floating leaves there. Yeah, which is maybe not ideal.
Also, I'm not sure.
We also have a comment from someone adding some particles like leaf or dust would be perfect, as Martin said in one of his tutorials.
I will say though, apart from the leaves that look a little bit low poly on the left there, like I think the detail in the environment is really, really nice. Like there's different rocks kind of all over the place, and there's this nice path down here, which I only just noticed, which is really, really nice. You can see like the dispersion of grass is really quite nice, and there's different types of trees. The rocks are all, I assume, custom made, like these big ones at the back. Like they all seem to be sculpted or something to match that concept art that you got from Midjourney and all that sort of thing. So I think it works really, really well.
Yeah. And by the way, there is some life over here. We have some birds, but they got completely lost because of the low contrast with the background.
If you put them like here, that would be perfect because
Much
you'd see them
better.
instantly.
Yeah.
There's some over here too, actually.
Yeah.
There are a couple of interesting questions in the chat. First of all, someone's asking how they submit their artwork. So maybe, you know, do you want to let them know about the website? And
yeah, I just posted a comment in the chat. You basically have to take part in the challenges. We try to do it every month, one of these challenges. Next one will be in August, starting on the 10th. So feel free to join in. And of course, we can't critique every artwork. We have like over 200 artworks here. So we will pick some where we thought maybe these can be improved with some little tweaks. And as I mentioned earlier, we will also send out an email where you have the chance to reply, and then the first 5 will also be here. And of course, if you have the chance to win these challenges, then you also have a pretty good chance to get reviewed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Reynaldo was asking, we must tell a history in the image, right? I guess they mean a story. And I think for the judging criteria, it wasn't necessarily like an absolute, it has to include this, that, or the other, because if some artworks were like amazing in story, but not so good in other elements, then they would still, be definitely considered for going through. So, that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
There is a thing about like history in the image, though. Like as far as like why things are where they are. Like for example, this fence right here, right? Like if you have like a pristine fence, then there's nothing. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a world that's been lived in. But because it's slightly dilapidated, it feels like it's worn over time, which is a nice thing. And like this path down here, it feels like it's been worn in by people walking along there, or animals or carts or something. But like if you had something like for if it was just like flat grass, that would tell no story, or that would be like nothing's existed in this world ever. So adding that sort of detail is important as well, just to make things feel more realistic, whether you're telling a story or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, let's go to the first honorable mention here. And by the way, if you're wondering how the clouds were done here, as you can see on the artwork, it's all planes.
Image planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Masha, will you say something?
Sure. This is one of my favorite artworks. I chose it because it's so like creative. I mean, it's a squid in the sky that holds a city on his head. Are you kidding
come on.
me? And it's orange and blue. It has this vibrant colors, and like the tiny little character here with this tiny little boat. And I don't know, I love this artwork. It's really cool. So I actually, when I choose it, I didn't even notice it, the little like little things that were not really good. I just saw it the first time and I was like, it's great, full stop. Yeah. But of course, if you zoom in and start watching a bit more carefully, you start noticing just a little like small things, like this water here. I guess it was added by adding a plane also. Yeah. And this is it actually looks really flat. For a case like this, I would probably do maybe a 3D thing and then add a texture, a water texture to it, and it would look much better. And here we also have like these clouds that are really burned out. And it's not justified even because you don't have any kind of light source over here, so it feels really weird. But anyway, I really love this artwork. It's really unique, and I like it so much. So, guys.
Curtis, maybe?
I think I remember saying when we were doing the judging that I think this one would win the popular vote. And I'm having a look through the comments now, and I'm seeing like a lot of really positive comments. So I go on the mark with that. I think in the notes as well that I wrote for this artwork, it said there was a bit of a discrepancy between like the super high detailed clouds, which definitely look like photographs of clouds, which are just being kind of laid on top of this rather stylized artwork. So it felt a little bit inconsistent there. Maybe if they're a bit more fluffy, more stylized. Fluffy is probably not a good word. They could just be rounded as well, but more stylized to fit with the nature of the character. Also, I think kind of keeping shape motifs as well. there's a lot of roundness in this image. You've got like the giant round squid head, you've got the lovely round eyes there, you've got the round mouth, so maybe rounder cloud structures would probably fit with it to make it kind of feel more contiguous. I'm losing a word now.
Contiguous.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. So also, yeah, the circular structure of the balloons as well. So I feel like there's just a bit of a stylistic discrepancy there. But otherwise, I said right from the beginning, like I love the idea of it. Like fantastic. And they have tried to do storytelling as well. We got like a very Wind Waker Link vibe down here with the boat on the clouds. I feel like that's quite cute as well. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I also love this artwork. One thing with the clouds, I think what maybe also feels a bit weird is, for example, here we have these darker spots. For example, here, and also like the shadow area here or here. But the clouds are the same brightness, the same shadows everywhere. So I think like having a little bit of shadow going on here, or maybe making the clouds darker underneath this area, or even here, or maybe more on the other side here, could really help to like marry like the giant squid together with like the clouds a bit better.
Yeah. I also think that the clouds that are really close to the giant squid that will get like an orangey color, just
Indirect
slightly.
lighting.
Yeah.
To bounce.
Yeah.
There's a few tiny little, like, again, looks really, really great. But there are a few minor technical things that haven't been touched yet. One of them for me is like the blur on this element here does not match at all to the clouds that are directly around it. Like they seem really sharp and stuff. I think that's probably again because of that image texture issue. But that line there looks really quite sharp, but it's right next to the blurry tentacle. There's this strange sort of highlight around everything, and I can only assume that's because the sky was brighter in the original render or whatever it was used, and it's been dropped afterwards to make it a bit darker and a bit more vibrant. But as a result, you get that sort of strange halo sort of effect, which is nitpicky, but it is a thing. And then you've got these little itty bitty boats that I just noticed, and they are these huge galleon-looking things, but they are tiny. And I get that this is like obviously a stylized kind of city, but I'm getting the sort of sense that a person's about like, oh god, no, my texture's huge, but like you can see sort of how big a person roughly would be in the city, but they would be massive on these boats. And they're also just solid gray, which doesn't seem to match anything else at all anywhere in the image, which is a shame. Like, I don't know if they made them look like sort of blue and white painted to match the city a bit more or something, that would feel a bit nicer. But at the moment, they feel really kind of weird and out of place, like it was just a cool model that you wanted to add or something. But yeah, it like overall fabulous, and I do love like the sculpted sort of details in the squid. Like it feels like an organic creature, which is really, really cool, and like the skin texture and everything, it feels great. It's mostly nitpicky little details that are sort of making it fall down for me.
Yeah, someone in the comments mentioned, I can imagine this piece at night, and I think this is actually true. If you imagine dark clouds and everything is glowing, this would also fit really nice.
Yeah.
Here. All right, let's go to the last image from the Pro Arena, which is this more realistic take in contrast to what we just saw. Well, I mean, on the first glance, this image looks a bit empty. However, if you take a closer look, you notice that the city and everything looks pretty realistic here. And I think the skyline here looks also really nice because you have a lot of different shaped buildings, and it's not everywhere the same frequency of details. We have some like trees in between here, Then here we have a more grayish spot, but then also smaller details, bigger buildings, smaller buildings, and then these circular shapes in between here as well. And what I really like about the image is the scale of it. So you can really feel that this is a huge city because of all these details here, and of course also because of these little balloons here. So I think the details, the small details, are fine enough, so you can really tell that this is something big. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of like really cool details, as you said. Like, I appreciate the airport up here. I love the little SpaceX like reference down here. With I'm assuming this is like the Starship rocket with the refueling arm. And so yeah, like what I like about that is that you can actually identify sectors of the city. And that's something that I feel like we didn't necessarily see in other pieces. So I really appreciated that attention to detail. And again, like a lot of the other artworks we had to look at as well, when they had these structures that are holding the cities up, they didn't get much attention or much love. And we had something to say about like the design of those. And we haven't listed any of those ones to have a look at on this stream. But this one's got a lot of attention to detail. So like there's just little areas here that they spent time on that I didn't see other artists spending time on. So that's why I really like this one. I wanted to put that through.
Yeah. Masha? You're muted.
Forgot to enable. Yeah, I kind of really like the combination of the vegetation with the city. It looks really, really realistic. Something I don't really like of this piece is maybe too much like empty space around it, and also that it really feels like nothing is happening. So it's a bit like it's really cool from the technical side of view, but from the like storytelling side of view is kind of a bit boring. So I would probably add something to that side. And apart from that, it looks really cool, and I don't have any more things to criticize here.
Yeah, I think it's one of the ones. Oh, sorry, you just made a
Yeah,
noise.
just for I forgot. I forgot one thing is that the background, in the background we can see some kind of sea image or something, and it feels like it's out of scale. It's like it feels really big. If you zoom out and zoom in and look at it, it feels like it's huge compared to the.
Yeah. I haven't even noticed that.
Maybe it's clouds.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's clouds,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah.
feels like sea, like.
Yeah, it does, right?
And I think if maybe just for the sake of trying to.
What happened?
Oh goodness! Interrupt me twice, 3 times when you're
I'm
out.
sorry.
Stop hitting the microphone.
I think for the sake of trying to cut down some of the empty space, like if it was cropped like there, something like
Yes.
that, and so you just got rid of that, like make it a really wide image. Like you can still be like 1920 wide pixels wise, but just make it like, I don't know, instead of 1080 tall, make it something like 800 tall or something like that, and just cut out a chunk of the top, because you can still get all this detail and you can still get the same effect, the same atmosphere, everything, but you don't have quite so much dead space, which is kind of nice. I think the lack of life, like Masha said, is something that is a little bit unfortunate in this. Even just like, I think I saw a comment somewhere, like a plane or something taking off would be kind of cool. Like, I don't know, just something to make it feel like something's happening. But I really, really love the glow and like these streets. Like they give the sense of atmosphere, which is really nice. I love that, and I think the lighting is just generally really well done. the silhouette sort of vibe of the thing. I think it works really, really well for this, and there's just enough color to make it feel like that there is like foreground and background, and you can get a sense of the greenery, which is just there enough till you get a sense of it, which is nice. And like the detail underneath the oh wow, there's so much detail going on under there, which is really cool. These little domey things, like feels like they're observing down, which is a nice thing. It feels like there's some thought that went into it. It's not just like spit random noise under there. I think it's just done really well overall.
Yeah.
To be honest, this is one of the favorite pieces for me of the whole competition. The only flaw is, as you mentioned, the lack of story, the lack of details in the background, and this one is actually begging for that one spaceship in the foreground flying towards you. So that's a real pity, but I think with a little bit of work, this could be like added and finalized and made awesome. And then with the widescreen resolution, it would be amazing.
Yeah. All right, these were the winners, and we are getting closer to 2 hours. So let's maybe get a quick round here on the highlights from the training arena. So for the training arena, we don't have winners, but we picked out a few artworks which we liked, and these are not in any particular order. I think just like alphabetically here placed, maybe not. So let's quickly go over these. To not make this stream too long. So anyone, one short comment?
I remember really liking this one and trying to put my hand up for this one to go through right away because I loved the very consistent stylization. It's very soft all the way through. The color palette is, again, kind of limited, but in a very good way. The only thing I said was kind of missing was maybe just a little bit more story in it. Like, we don't exactly know who lives in the city, but I really, really loved it. I said that I would love having this as like my phone background, you know? So, yeah.
I think adding a little bit of story in this area here would probably work. Maybe some little vehicle similar as we have back here, because this spot here is pretty empty, in my opinion. And yeah, that's for me.
There is one thing I want to add quickly as well, which I didn't put in my notes. You see, I like this little detail. There are like, I think, 2 bird models, one where it's just sitting normally and one with the wings out. But I really liked, this is like such a simple thing, but I really like the fact that not only is the bird with the wing out there flying, but there's also one preparing to take flight on the left there, and it's different from all the others. And that's my favorite bird. Okay.
I think this image is begging for like a little silhouette of a person
I was thinking the same.
Just something, because that would be the story element. Like just like a little person there, maybe looking out or something. I don't know, but just something. And like, yeah, that's the main thing that I think is missing for me.
Yeah, same thing for me.
Okay, then let's go to the next one by Matthew.
Epic.
Marty.
Volunteered.
I love the colors. I love the composition. I love the sense of scale this one has. Maybe the landscape at the very bottom could have some more atmosphere to it that would even increase the sense of scale. The one flaw that I don't like at all is the repetition of the buildings. It is very obvious, and the placement of the buildings. Yeah, there's just there's just the structure and the stairs and the buildings and nothing else. So adding little details here and there, little paths, and secondary details would help a lot in the foreground. But it definitely passes the squint test for me. Like when I go very far and squint my eyes, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think the stairs are the thing that sort of the stairs in the buildings are the
out
main
of
thing
scale.
for me. Well, yeah, like the stairs look like each one of the stairs would be at least 3 stories high, and they're so wide, and they seem to like they almost cut into a couple of buildings in a few places, and the roads just stop dead at the bottom, and they feel a bit out of place. And like it would be kind of cool to see like a few cars driving around or something, because that would be like a little bit of life in it. But I absolutely love the landscape underneath. I think that is gorgeous. Maybe just like, I don't know, something like a little closer cloud-wise would be kind of cool. But that is a super nitpicky thing.
Yeah, I love the color on the water
Mhm.
and the mountains there. Yeah.
I think this one suffers from the same things which I brought up for Rain Wang's like massive cinematic artwork that we had to look at. Again, it's like the same comments I had about textures. They tend to cut off. The scales are a bit inconsistent. They stretch in a few places as well. And when you have a look at this massive ring again, you can actually see like the polygons. You could count them, you know, like as they go around the shape. So it's like it's the same thing again, like as the other artwork. It's that you have these artists which have a really good sense of composing a massive scale scene and getting like the sense of scale like down to a T.
The vibe.
But yeah, exactly, the vibe. But when you look into it, like there's a few things which let it down. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get over to the next one, and Marsha can say something here.
Okay, I quite like this artwork in general, but in some points it really feels like there's something missing. I mean, you can see this little small character in here, and I actually haven't seen it at the first. Yeah, in the first place, I didn't notice
Yeah,
it.
me neither.
Yeah, I noticed it because you guys told. And so I think since this is one of the main elements of the scene, because this is why this scene gets interesting, because you have this little characters here living his life in this huge city. But I guess that you should maybe give him more attention, maybe make him slightly bigger, or maybe add some, I don't know, composition elements that like are driving our sight to the character. Something like this. And also from the composition point of view, apart from the fact that this character isn't noticeable, I think that maybe the city is maybe too high. This spot here, it feels really like just too much empty space, while on the other side we have these buildings that are cut out of the scene. So maybe the city could have been moved just slightly, like to the bottom. Yeah. And in general, I think it's really nice, and I love the character that it's sitting there. And in general, it's a good work.
Yeah, I think here we have a fantastic lighting going on, and the mood
Yeah.
is perfect. And I also love the clouds down here, although we maybe see a little bit too much of them. And I think the biggest flaw is, besides maybe the position of the city, that this lower structure has too little details compared to all these buildings up here. Yeah. And by the way, I think someone mentioned this in the comments. So everyone is deciding on their own if they want to join the pro or the training arena. Sometimes we feel that some of these works could have made it in the pro arena. So we felt a little bit sorry to see them in the training arena. But we are not shifting the images around because people decide on their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last note here?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the scale issue seems to be rearing its head a little bit in this one as well. Like these floors here, like some of these buildings, like this one here, they have like floors that are about that big. But if that character went up that tiny little ladder and walked all the way out to where those buildings are, I feel like those buildings would be about twice as big as they probably should be, maybe even 2 or 3 times as big as they probably should be, which is not that big a deal. Sort of, but like this one out the back here feels more in scale, and like this one feels more in scale than this huge one or this one here. Bit nitpicky, but I think that's something that sort of bugged me a little with this. It's really nice though. I love that sky. I think if that was that the lighting and the colors are really, really nice there.
Karine in the discussion or in the chat has a good point that it almost seems like there are two suns. One very intense one coming from the right, and the other one kind of coming from the left,
Yes.
more like a reddish one. So that's a little bit of a flaw.
Unless there's two suns in this world.
Yeah, unless there's two suns, yes.
Might be.
Floating
All right.
over Tatooine.
Let's go over to Robert's entry.
Love this one. I think my original kind of notes were, first of all, I'll start with the clouds. The clouds are the letdown for the image, although what I really do like is they have variable softness. When you look at a lot of the other artworks, they're all a consistent style. Like they're all like one particular type of cloud or one particular type of detail. I like that there's a variable softness here. Also, the city, I really love the design. It's a limited color palette. The detail distribution is quite good as well. It's all a consistent style. I actually wanted to see this in the pro arena. So again, like talking about like who should or should not, be taking part in pro or training. If you're watching this, Robert, then maybe you should give it a try because I really love this one.
Or if you're not sure, by the way, you can also post it in the community and ask us what we think.
Yeah.
Where you should go.
I was going to say, Martin, it's Dishonored style. There you go.
It is. You know me.
I also like this artwork a lot. I feel, unless this was intentional, that up here we could add a little bit more life. Maybe if this should like feel empty, you could put some ravens flying around here or something like this to make it feel empty and lonely. Or to add, if you want to add some life, add more characters here or some other birds. What I feel, if you zoom in very closely, is that you could make the connections between all these buildings a bit better. You have like tiny flaws here and there and clipping intersections. But since this is more like an artistic way of displaying the city, it's not really something that could work in real life. It still works for me. Yeah.
It's like a diorama piece again.
Yeah.
Apart from the low poly clouds, it's really one of the best pieces.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah. All right. And let's go over to the last one. And maybe Marsha want to say something about this.
Sure. I absolutely love this piece. Also because I saw it growing into the community. So
yes, agreed.
Gregoire, he posted the artwork in the community and
Oh, did we lose
Marsha? Oh, she's dead.
No, she's gone.
Marsha,
okay.
Where are you? Okay. So
Heat.
This one was like posted several times in the community, and it went from a distinctly different thing with a lot more flaws and like things to work on, and used feedback to improve it and improve it, and it's at the point now. Oh, she's back. She's back. Where it's probably my favorite one in out of a lot of these.
Yeah.
Please resume, Masha. You're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I closed the window for the mistake. Anyway, I don't know if Daniel already told this, but it was really nice to see how this artwork changed with all the suggestions he received. It was really cool. It changed the lighting and many other things. It was really great. And I definitely think that this artwork has all the elements to compete maybe also in the pro arena because it has a great composition. It has like storytelling where we see this little spiders family, other spiders that are doing maybe building up their houses. We have variation where we have like every single house, it has like variations and it's different. Like it was really built up by a different spider that's living in there. So I really love this artwork, and I think it's very well done. Yeah, I'm done.
Colors wise, it's so vibrant and
Yeah.
so interesting to look at. The contrast between the orange and the blue is so pronounced. It's really, really nice. Like very few notes. It's very good. Love it.
Yeah.
I like that there are so many lights, but it's not really battling for attention, and your eyes are clearly drawn to just a few focal points.
Yeah.
And also the moon is placed nicely. Nothing that is like hurting the eyes somehow, because sometimes we have
Yeah.
these strong sunlights or something like this. It fits really nicely. And I mean, one little flaw which I would suggest to maybe improve is like the bridges look a little bit low poly in some areas, so maybe adding a tiny bit of texture to it, maybe a little bit higher resolution, but this is very small nitpicky thing. Other than that, I love this image. Great job here. And as someone from the chat says, this was my favorite.
Same for me.
So next time, Pro Arena.
Yeah, absolutely.
My suggestion.
Dare to dream.
All right, and man, we just went through 20 different artworks.
Yeah.
Whew. And 2 hours are gone, just like that.
2 hours are gone.
You timed it quite
Yeah.
well as
And
well.
we're never getting them back.
Come on, it was amazing.
No, it was very enjoyable. It was an enjoyable usage.
Yeah, I mean, what are we supposed to say? I imagine Daniel saying, "It was awful. I'm going away."
No, I think there were amazing pieces in this competition,
Yeah.
and it was really hard to choose what to put into the winners category and what not to, at least for me. So I'm glad with those finalists, because every single one is unique in its own little way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me as a guest as well. Like, it's been quite fun. And I felt really, really bad when you sent me all of the submissions and I had to like narrow them down and like delete the ones I didn't like, because just thinking about all the people that spent so much time working on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had difficulties with that too. Especially because I saw so many of them developing in the community, and I felt so attached. And then I had to say no to so many. It hurt my soul slightly, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's the duty.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Someone is asking for the next challenge, and yeah, this is true. The next challenge starts in August on the 10th. We don't have the topic yet, but we will send out an email to our mailing list. If you want to join the list, it's on our website in the footer. And we will basically send out a poll where you can suggest the next topic and vote for it. So you have the power to decide what's next.
Yeah.
It will be sent out pretty soon. Yeah, other than that, this was quite fun. I really enjoy doing these review sessions, and I hope
Me too.
it is useful for the people watching. Thanks a lot, Curtis, for joining us this challenge.
Thank you.
Check
for
out
having
Curtis' YouTube
Thank
channel,
you.
Curtis Holt on YouTube. He's doing some awesome stuff there. And thanks, CG Boost team here for being here and helping out. And yeah,
Very welcome.
I think that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see us in the next live stream, I guess. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.